Hello, welcome back to the channel. I took my Custodes to a local tournament at the weekend, and managed to get pictures of all the games. This was my first 40k tournament, so I really wasn't sure what to expect. So, let's take a look at the armies for the first match. Please bear in mind that my description of the opposing army is usually approximate anyway, but that applies even more so for these tournament games. I stupidly forgot to take a picture of my deployment, but it was basically about here, and this shot is after movement. So, the deployment is obviously hammer and anvil, but all the missions in this tournament were the newest chapter approved missions. This one is beachhead. There's an objective in the dead center of the board, and we each place one more in our deployment zones. Starting from the second battle round, you score points based on what objectives you hold at the start, I repeat, at the start, of your turn. It's 1 point for your own objective, 2 for the central objective, and 3 for the enemy's. My opponent won the roll-off, so picked a side, then I had to deploy my whole army, but got to go first. He failed to seize. He has arrayed his army right at the back of his deployment zone, with his scion squads in reserve. His objective is here. So let's get into it. This is actually my first time facing guard, but I'm well aware of their shooting ability. I'm pretty terrified of just getting blown off the board in turn 1.
Yeah.
Oh, in case you can't see it, the central objective is here. So I keep one squad of custodian guard back near my objective, as I'm wary of him deep striking in and nabbing it. The rest of my army moves up, but due to the deep deployment zones I'm still miles away from his battle line. I have to keep one squad of bikes in range of the central objective, to score it next turn, but this means they cannot hide from the Lehman Russes in the top right corner. The only thing in range and shooting is my salvo bikes, and they take a few wounds off the leftmost Lehman Russ, which is near his objective, and that's all for my turn 1. Guard turn 1, and literally the only movement is his scout sentinels galloping forward to get in my way. He then unleashes all hell against my jet bikes, and kills 2 from each unit. This means I do still have a bike in range of the central objective for next turn, but it's certainly a sizable dent in my forces.
I've started to get this feeling that I'm totally fucked.
Neither of us scored first strike in battle round 1. At the start of my turn 2, then, I score a point from my home objective and 2 from the central objective, making the score 3-0. So in my turn 2, I suddenly panic about my home objective, as I think about all the melt and plasma and whatnot he could bring down around it, and I think 3 custodians might not cut the mustard, or indeed the custard. So I sprint another squad back into range of it, also keeping them within 6 of the Vexilla. My third squad, on the left of the pick, heads up to the central objective, to take over objective squatting duties from the lone bike. My bikes, that is, 2 shield captains and 2 surviving regular bikes, move up like so, and my Terminators manage to fit into a nice little spot in front of his lines, ready to start some shit. My shooting is again pretty ineffectual, but in the charge phase, I get a good bit of luck, and make all my charges. Termies into 1 infantry squad, lone jet bike into another, and my characters another bike into the 2 sentinels. I should probably point out that my warlord is the bike in the bottom right, with the silver insignia to differentiate him from the other shield captain. The lone jet bike with 1 wound remaining, through combined shooting and combat, wipes out most of the squad. The Terminators kill about 9 members of the other squad, as well, and obviously my jet bikes completely muller both of the sentinels. Annoyingly, the one my warlord was fighting blows up, and does a mortal wound to both of my shield captains.
How dare you, you little thug! How dare you!
Guard gain a point from their home objective at the start of their turn 2. So in Guard turn 2, there's no movement over here, but his drop squads come down. Two of them arrive near my home objective, and the other one comes down here, near the central objective, to try and help take out these guys. The last sentinel trundles up next to them. In shooting, he focuses most of his fire on this central squad, as he needs to stop me scoring another 2 VPs next turn, and he deletes them with ease. He also kills 2 of the Terminators, and leaves the last one with just 1 wound left. Over here, his scions don't do too well, however, and they put a few wounds on my guys but don't manage to kill any. So, as you can see, he then charges them, hoping to swamp me with weight of numbers and stop me from scoring this objective at the start of my next turn. It, doesn't go too well for the plucky guardsmen, however, as they get absolutely mullered in combat, with only 2 remaining after morale. He also sees a chance to lock up the Terminator in combat, and charges the Lehman Russ into it. However, the Russ only has 5 wounds left, and I roll pretty hot, with my hero of Termi destroying the Russ with a mighty swing of his axe. I gain another VP from my home objective at the start of turn 3, putting me on 4 points. In my turn 3, I charge in the Terminator and Jetbike to finish off the rest of these shattered forces, while my 2 shield captains fly over to the Scions and Sentinel near the central objective, sending them reeling and leaving just 2 Scions alive after combat. Over here, the Terminator slays the company commander, or whatever that character is called, but the Jetbike whiffs, meaning Guard will still score their home objective point in turn 3. And over by my home objective, I finish off 1 squad of Scions, but it looks like 1 guy from the other squad miraculously manages to survive. So at the start of their turn 3, Guard go up to 2 points. Now, this is the last turn of the game, due to the tournament time constraints. I think I may have gotten confused over how some of the points were scored, as I'm not sure if we both scored Linebreaker at the end of this turn, due to his 1 guy remaining and falling back. If that's the case, then one of the previous pictures is out of place, and his Scions must have just about managed to stop me from scoring my home objective last turn. Whatever the case, all that really matters is we work out that at the end of this turn, the game will end 4-3 in my favor, unless he can kill my warlord, who still has 6 wounds remaining. So, he targets everything at him, including his 2 remaining Lehman Russes, and masses of mortar fire. And with his last mortar volley, 2 wounds finally get through my armor. So even Victor of the Blood Games won't save me, and I have no CP left.
Fucking hell!
You scored a draw.
Holy frickin' shizballs, the last few rolls of the game were tense. My warlord tanked an insane amount of damage right at the end, but it was just too much for him in the end. In hindsight, I think I should have played more cannily and not even bothered going after the Guard's home objective. If my Terminators, shield captains, and Jetbikes had all stayed near the central objective, I don't think he'd have been able to shift them off quick enough to stop me racking up a ton of points. With such a low mobility army, once his Scions were taken care of, I'd have been sitting pretty. Having said that, his tanks were certainly capable of frickin' shredding through my units with even average rolls, so who knows. I'm more than happy to have gotten a draw in my first tournament game anyway, especially against Guard. Thanks to my opponent for a friendly and enjoyable game. Stay tuned for games 2 and 3. Oh, and apologies for the relatively sparse amount of pictures for this report, I kind of dropped the ball a bit. I did manage to take more during the next games.